From my home to yours, God bless you. God bless you. I want to talk to those of you who may think you're past your prime. Can I try to convince you that you're not? Whatever reason that you may be thinking that your best days are behind you, I just need 7 or 8 minutes to try to convince you otherwise. If you can't stay away, post your prayer needs on the prayer section, and we will gladly pray on behalf. But if you can stay around to take a look at how God used Moses at the most unusual time of his life, I think you'll be glad you did. You remember, he was an Israelite reared in the Egyptian palace. His countrymen were slaves, but Moses was privileged. He ate at the royal table. He was educated in the finest schools, but his most influential teacher had no degree, as she was his mother, a Jewess, who was hired to be his nanny. Moses, you can almost hear her whisper to her young son, Moses, God has put you here on purpose for a purpose, and someday you will set your people free. Never forget, Moses, never forget. Moses did not. The flame of justice grew hot in him. It grew hot until it blazed. One time Moses saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, and Moses killed the Egyptian. The next day Moses saw the Hebrew. You'd think the slave would say thank you, but he did not. Rather than express gratitude, he expressed anger. Will you kill me too? He asked. Moses knew he was in trouble. And so Moses ran. He fled Egypt and he hid in the wilderness. Call it a career shift. He went from dining with the heads of state to counting the heads of sheep. Hardly an upward move. And so it happened that a bright, promising Hebrew began herding sheep in the hills. He went from the Ivy League to the cotton patch, from the Oval Office to a taxi cab, from swinging a golf club to digging a ditch. Moses thought the move was permanent. And there's no indication he ever intended to go back to Egypt. None. In fact, there's every indication that he wanted to stay with the sheep. Standing barefoot before the burning bush, you might remember, he confessed, I'm not a great man. How can I go to the king and lead the Israelites out of Egypt? That's in the book of Exodus. Chapter 3 and verse 11. I'm glad Moses asked that question. It's a good one. Why Moses? Or more specifically, why the 80-year-old version of Moses? The 40-year-old version of Moses was more appealing. The Moses we saw in Egypt was brash. He was confident. But the Moses we find 4 decades later, he seems reluctant and weather-worn. Had you or I looked at Moses back in Egypt, we would have said, now this man is ready for battle. Educated in the finest system in the world, trained by the ablest soldiers, instant access to the inner circle of Pharaoh. Moses spoke their language. He knew their habits. He was the perfect man for the job to liberate the Hebrew slaves. Moses at 40 we like, but Moses at 80? No way. Too old, too tired, smells like a shepherd, speaks like a foreigner. What impact would he have on Pharaoh? He's absolutely the wrong man for the job. And Moses would have agreed. Tried that one once before, he would say, those people, they don't want to be helped. Just leave me here to tend my sheep. They're easier to lead. Moses wouldn't have gone. You wouldn't have sent him. I wouldn't have sent him. But God? Well, God did. How do you figure? Benched at 40 and suited up at 80. Why? What does Moses know now that he didn't know then? What did he learn in the desert that he didn't learn in Egypt? Well, I can think of a few things. The ways of the desert, for one thing. 40-year-old Moses was He was a city boy. Octogenarian Moses knows the name of every snake and the location of every watering hole. And if he's going to lead millions of Hebrews into the wilderness, he had better know the basics of Desert Life 101. Family dynamics for another. If he's going to be traveling with families for 40 years, it might help to understand how they work. While in the wilderness, he marries a woman of faith, the daughter of a Midianite priest, and establishes his own family. But more than the ways of the desert and more than the people, Moses needed to learn something about himself. Apparently, he has learned it. God says Moses is ready. And to convince him, God speaks through a bush. Had to do something pretty dramatic to get Moses' attention. It's as if God is saying, all right, school's out. Now it's time to get to work. Poor Moses. He didn't even know he was enrolled, but he was. And guess what? So are you. The voice from the bush is the voice that whispers to you. It reminds you that God is not finished with you yet. Oh, you may think He is. You may think you're past your prime. You may think you've peaked. You may think He's got someone else to do the job. If so, my friend, think again. Don't you love Philippians 1:6? God began doing a good work in you, and I am sure, writes the Apostle Paul, that He will continue it until it is finished when Jesus Christ comes again. Did you see what God is doing? A good work, and He's doing a good work in you. And did you see when He'll be finished? When Jesus comes again. May I spell out the message? God ain't finished with you yet. Not yet. Oh, dear child of God, for whatever reason that you're thinking that your best days are behind you, don't listen to that lie any longer. For whatever reason that you're thinking that your best contribution to the world, to the kingdom, to the church, to society, that's yesterday's life, don't think that, please. Receive the promise of God. He's not finished with you yet. And He who began a good work in you will continue it until He is finished. You think about that. Have a great day.